Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery, and the system that I've got out here on the bench is my mixed worms. It's like a mixture of red wigglers, Indian blue worms, and European night crawlers. And it's a fabric system. The reason I've got this rig over here is because when you buy one of these, you can either decide to put the VermiBag tote into a tote or a tub or something like this. This is what it was designed to do, but you also have the option to mount it within you would have to make it yourself. It's not one of the things that they provide. Into just a frame like this, and then it would be much better ventilated as opposed to being surrounded by plastic like this. And when I first bought when I first got the system, I mounted it within this, and it was pretty cool. But then I figured I would go with the way they intended it, as the manufacturer intended it, with plastic surrounding it to keep more moisture in, because it did run pretty dry when it was in the frame. But I can almost see going back to the frame in the summer months. I might do that at some point, but for the past few times I've been running it this way. And you might have also noticed a lot of little flying insects. Let's get the camera pointed down and give us a better view of what's going on down here. When we were last in this system to check on it 10 days ago and to feed it, all this stuff, this white powder that had been on there previously, was all spilled into the container, into the bedding, to just clean off the plastic, to rid it of all this captured dead insect carcasses. And I didn't really make any effort to try to preserve the white powder, the diatomaceous earth itself. I just threw that into the system too, because I believe it's sort of like adding other crushed pulverized rock dust, or some people use dolomite lime or other sort of mineral things into their systems. And I believe the diatomaceous earth is similar to that too, is that you can place it right into your bin, and the worms can actually benefit from it in terms of it being sort of a mineral. But you can see here, a lot of these are already succumbed to having bumped into this diatomaceous earth. A lot of them are just now being exposed to it by me dumping them into it. And we'll just do the same as we've been doing, is just emptying this pile into the system to dispose of it. And it was 10 days ago when we last checked in on this system that I even mentioned that I wanted to try something out. These things, these mosquito dunks, or I guess the technical name for it is the BTI, or not the brand name. BTI is just what it is, and mosquito dunks, I guess, is the brand name for it. And I believe I'm going to, for a little while at least, retire my use of the diatomaceous earth and try transitioning just to the treatment of my systems with a little bit of this BTI. So it's only 10 days since we checked in on this system. These two worms are mating, by the way, if you noticed. Some people might have already noticed. they're latched onto each other, and they seem so docile there. It seems like a shame to disrupt what they're doing. So I'm going to carefully just remove this coffee filter and let them do what they're doing. A couple more worms hang out here. How nice those castings are out here on the top surface. I was curious about what type of results we'd get with that last feeding, because I've been pretty regularly, I think everywhere, all my systems have been getting a little dose of this worm chow feeding. And in addition to the worm chow last time, 10 days ago, they received coffee, and that was it. And I was curious to see how that turned out, because the coffee was kind of blended in together with the worm chow. And I just got a feeling it was probably something that the worms really would enjoy, but I'd like to see firsthand results, And unless I see good results, I'm not coming down here with more. But if I do see good results, that was my plan, was to kind of repeat the last feeding, because I've got a whole bunch of more coffee to get rid of. Surprise, surprise. So I'm not sure what all this is here, all this white. See this? Are these springtails? What the heck's going on over here? Weird. You know what? I do not know what that is. Let me see if I can get a closer look and maybe just let the camera run on that for a second. Pretty interesting. I guess since I fed a little different than usual, it shouldn't be too surprising that we're getting results that are slightly different. I'm curious to probe further down into the feeding area, but while I was letting the camera roll there for a moment, I grabbed some of this fluid here, that BTI treated water, and we're definitely including it here. It was last time we fed 10 days ago that we were in here when I even threatened kind of to the bugs at large in my worm systems that I was going to break out that BTI, and how it was like so long overdue because I probably should have, put that stuff to use long ago because I purchased it a long time ago. And at this point, this is one of the last systems that not yet even received any. So now it's just on the rotation to get checked in on. Partially accelerating the timeline for it anyway, too, because it probably didn't necessarily need to get fed, but I was anxious to get back in here for treating it with the BTI. And you did see that, a good number of flying insects had been captured here on that top covering plastic by the diatomaceous earth powder. But if you don't get to the heart of the problem, the reproductive cycle, yeah, you'll keep killing them, but that won't stop them from reproducing and, continuing to be around. So, it kind of produces that's pretty cool. Kind of produces this feeling like, yeah, I've knocked out a whole bunch of them, but you're not really reducing your exposure to that continuing by much, unfortunately. So check out these little itsy bitsy baby worms that are sticking to my glove. It would be so easy just to miss the fact that you've got like a half a dozen little creatures stuck to you. You just walk away and end up dropping them on the floor. So I really got to be careful, but it's pretty cool to see all these little babies in here. Don't you think? So whatever, I think we're still in a safe enough spot here working right over the bin that we don't have to sweat it, but I'll be mindful not to cause trouble. More little itsy bitsy worms everywhere. Cool. So it does seem like my idea here was that even if I saw signs of a whole bunch of leftover coffee or worm chow, that I would still probably try to get something in here, even if it was kind of a scaled back, smaller feeding, just because there was already kind of a glut of leftovers, which I don't think I'm seeing here. I'm seeing, stuff that looks like remnants of the worm chow. That's the stuff that I believe is this light colored stuff that's got a little bit of mold on it. But as long as it's kind of been spread around, it seems like it's going to get consumed, because it's the only place you see it is where it's kind of clumped together in little bits, and there's not even that much of it. So I'm writing off the worm chow put in here 10 days ago as more or less having been eaten. And I don't see anything that looks to me like leftover coffee too, because it was all blended together quite nicely. Here's a pretty good sized chunk of something that's probably not worm castings. This could be worm chow and coffee. I think it makes good sense to break apart a big chunk. Something like that would not, get any action as a chunk. I mean, the inside of it'll take forever to get accessed. So I think we can classify the last feeding as still, showing pretty good signs of leftovers. All this has to kind of be classified as mostly coffee with, worm chow kind of sprinkled into it. So even though the worm chow, being the lighter colored substance, appears to dominate here, I believe that the majority of what the last feeding consisted of was coffee. And it does seem like things are drying in here too, That was, I think, one of the other things that we were going to try to drive towards. I remember pulling out these strands last time. I was growing suspicious that whatever these things are, they're probably not something that's going to break down, so I've just been plucking them out. I figured, what the heck, let's get rid of that thing too. Gosh, I wish I could do kind of like a live poll of the viewers. It's like, do we feed? Don't we feed? It does seem like if I blend it all in, then it all gets a chance to be eaten much better than being in a big pile this way. So I think just by what we've done here, we've aided the stuff in getting closer to its breakdown. The real question is, today on day 180, does it get its 18th feeding? Sticking to our average of a feeding every 10 days. Last time on day 170, it had received its 17th feeding. And you know, a system that's already up in this age, a lot of times I'd be looking to drive it towards harvest, but a lot of times when I get those thoughts, you know, a couple other considerations come to mind. You know, it's like, am I really desperate for the castings? Do I feel a need to drive towards the finish? Or perhaps the other more important consideration is usually whether or not I've still got remaining room left within the system to, you know, do something like that, or am I better off driving towards completion because I'm already running out of space? Here, in these current conditions, with the space in the bin and my, you know, my need for castings, right now I got a pretty good supply on standby if I need it. So I'm not desperate for any of these castings. So I could see, you know, letting the system continuing as an active bin, giving it some food. So I will go upstairs to grab those bits of coffee, but I'll take all these little guys off my glove first. And then it'll be another feeding just like last time. It'll be worm chow and coffee. So before I head upstairs, I'll get rid of these little wormies, maybe break a little bit more of this stuff up, but it's break time, and I think we will feed. Cool. Just like last time, we're getting coffee and worm chow. I even got a soiled paper towel here, but I'm second guessing whether I want to put that paper towel or even these coffee filters in at this point. I'm thinking I might start adhering to one of my practices, which is to try to start cutting back on adding bedding, more bedding, stuff that'll, you know, be littering the material. There's a plum pit. I've been taking the plum pits out lately when I bump into them. Because, you know, last time too, we took one of the coffee filters we had and I think we ripped it up into little shreds. There's all kinds of bits of that and other things in here too. So yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. We'll put the coffee in, but the filters will remain here. I'll put them into some newer system where there'll be plenty of time for those to break down. So the only thing we really need is a little kind of a ditch down the middle that we could dump today's feeding into. This will give us a chance to maybe find a couple more little scraps that would benefit from being busted up. Little clumps that I did not succeed in finding and breaking up earlier, but I think we got the most of it. You know, maybe here and there'll be a clump like that, or here. But I think we got the majority of all the leftover. And it did seem like the coffee, I don't know, it's hard to say. Usually the coffee stands out pretty clearly when you're feeding, or when you're, you know, spotting it as leftovers from a feeding gone by in the past. And here it's kind of difficult for me to tell whether or not we encountered a lot of it. I mean, yeah, I do, yeah, okay, no, that's what it was. I did pretty much blend the coffee and the chow together in each case. And the fact that we were finding leftover chow is just, I mean, I don't know. I don't think this stuff was applied in such amounts that it could have clumped up so much, but I don't know. Who knows what's going on in the worm bin, right? Let's get these little guys fed and get this job done, right? Here goes contents of coffee filter number 1. I had a third one. The last one is still in the machine. I was tempted to just pull it out and bring it down here, but I think two coffee filters full of used coffee sprinkled with a little bit of worm chow. That's going to very closely simulate what they got last time. But you noticed how dry this stuff was, right? So I've also got this objective of getting some of my BTI liquid into this system, so it might make good sense right away to drizzle this coffee and chow with the BTI. Maybe we'll save a little bit at the end just so we can drizzle the top surface of the system too. And I'll be curious to see what we end up with as far as results using this Mosquito Dunks BTI solution, bacteria, whatever it is. So yeah, these filters will come in handy elsewhere. We've still got that old filter over there that we set aside that those two worms were mating on. We'll hang on to the old one and let that continue as our feeding zone indicator here. And I think going forward, now we're at day 180. It probably is a good time to start withholding the application of more and more bedding or things that'll take a long time to break down. That's why I think there's a good benefit to feeding stuff like what we just fed here, all tiny bite-sized stuff. If you find leftovers, you just go ahead and blend it in the next time and I think it's, I hope, at least, I think and I hope, mainly I hope it's stuff that's gonna, do well in here in the system. And as far as drying too, I even contemplated covering up here differently. Perhaps something better than just the plastic. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. That's not fair to say that there's any, downside to covering with plastic. In fact, it's very beneficial at times. But as the seasons change and as you sort of grow in your need to have a system that is able to just kick off its own excess moisture, then you're better off having something that better ventilates. Like I've got a few systems where I'm covering only with paper, only with cardboard, stuff like that, and they're holding out to their moisture okay, and also gaining that benefit of having good airflow. Versus the systems that are covered in plastic where, you're stifling all the airflow for the advantage of being able to retain the moisture that would otherwise evaporate out of the system. Geez, another plum pit. I'm going to keep pulling these out if I keep finding them. Alright, so now I've got a good amount of this stuff left. I thought I would have used more, and I really like the way this stuff is drying. I hate the idea of counteracting that, but since it is drying quite nicely, only by just us cinching the outer edges of the plastic covering in, a little tiny bit. We didn't pull in much. I think we're going to be able to apply the BTI on those outer edges that are going to, once again, have a little bit more airflow than the rest of the system, because we're going to replace the plastic covering just the way we found it, a little bit cinched in, allowing for more airflow, allow for a little bit more drying, and then that BTI that we just incorporated is not going to swamp the system. It'll just have the ability to flash off, and it's really just something that's meant to carry the BTI bacteria into here, so alright, let's not bother these little guys. Let them do what they were doing. We'll put this coffee filter over here to show us where we last fed, and we're pretty much done. All I got left to do is to cover up and put things away, but that stuff's boring, right? I don't want to waste your time with that. So really quick, before I go, let me just really quickly say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always very much appreciated, and if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. Alright everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.